Oh, there we go. There's the bell. All right. Okay, all right. So there's the do now. So press pause and do that, and then we'll come back and go over it. Okay, all right. So here we have a triangle. All right. I don't know if I made it clear enough. So here we have a good old triangle. That's the height, 8, right? And then that's the base. So area of a triangle, base times height, right? Always rewrite the equation, right? The formula. Base times height divided by 2. So that's what, 56 divided by 2 was that 28. All right, and that's it. Okay. All right, let's see. Unit 8, day 16. All right, that's the day. All right, hope you had a good day off yesterday. Homework's on the, what is that, the website. All right. Quiz is due at 3 p.m. today. All right, and then you're going to get a quiz Friday. What announcements do I have to make? Let's see. Work. Me. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Moving on. So today we're gonna do two. So we're gonna start. So we finished triangle last week, and now we're gonna do shapes that have 4 sides. Now, do you remember what's a general term we use for shapes that has 4 sides? Right, quad, right, quadrilaterals. So that's what we're gonna do today. So today, I kind of want to go pretty fast with these shapes this week with the quadrilaterals because the first two of which you have a lot of familiarity with. Okay, so we're gonna talk about these following quadrilaterals. Okay, squares, rectangles, that's today. Trapezoids, that's tomorrow. Parallelograms, that's the day after tomorrow. And then I think we're gonna have a quiz, and then the week after we're gonna do complex figures. Well, if possible, I actually want to shorten this into a week, but that's gonna be pretty tough. Okay, but I'll try my best. I really want to shorten these into a week. Okay, all right. So now for squares, right? And we're gonna fill out the graphic organizer together also. So first of all, what defines a square? So for example, what's the difference between a square and a rectangle, right? So a square, it is a quadrilateral where all 4 sides are equal, right? Congruent, right? Remember that word? So in a square, all 4 sides are congruent. But here's the thing. Let me see if I could draw this. So if I were to draw this, you could very well make the argument that that's a square too. So if all 4 sides are equal, I know they're not. I mean, I know, right? Aren't all 4 sides equal? But no one would ever look at this shape and say, well, that's a square. So the question is, well, what other things, what other properties distinguish a square from something that looks like this? Okay, and there's a name for this, by the way. I'll tell you that in a second. Is the fact that there are right angles here. Okay, so that's what makes a square a square. So first of all 4 sides are equal. Okay, and then that these lines, these sides, they all form right angles. So that means all these angles are 90 degrees. That's what makes it a square. So if you take this shape, right, what you would end up forming is a rhombus. So let me see if there's a rhombus here. I doubt it. Oh, maybe, is this it? Yeah, I should have just drawn this actually, right? So for example, in a rhombus, all 4 sides are equal. Okay, it's freezing. Okay, all 4 sides are equal. However, these, they aren't right angles. So that's the difference between. So imagine if you take a square and you kind of you squeeze the square into this shape. That's a rhombus. Okay, all right. Now how do you find the perimeter of a square? So let's say the side of a square, right? And let's use the letter S to represent that. How do you find the perimeter of a square? You add all four sides up. Right, I'm hoping you're writing this down. Now, I think you guys all know combining like terms. If you take S plus S plus S plus S, how many S's do you have? Yep, 4S, right? So in other words, to find the perimeter, you multiply the sides by 4. Why? Because there are 4 of them, right? Now, how do you find the area of a square? Right, you multiply the side by the side, like that. Okay, so side by the side, right? One side multiplied by the other side, right? So imagine, right? So the way to remember is imagine there's a rectangle. Let me just draw a rectangle. It's way easier. Imagine you have a rectangle. What would you say if you multiply the size of a rectangle? Right, length times width, right? So imagine that you don't call this length and width and you call it side instead. That's what you would get. Now, you might say to me, Mr. Ng, you use 2 different letters for the length and the width of a rectangle, right? How come both of these are the same letters? Well, of course they're the same letters because all the sides are the same. So you wouldn't call this S and then you wouldn't call this T. You wouldn't do that, right? Because they're the same side. So by using the same letter, you're telling that person these 2 sides are equal, right? In fact, as a matter of fact, all these sides are equal. You know what I'm saying? So that's what that is. Now, this is an 8th grade topic, but by the 8th grade, you'll realize that S times S, there's a shorter way of writing it. We must have talked about this already with exponents. Another way of writing this is S squared. Okay? All right. Now, with that said, let's go to our graphic organizer. All right, here we go. Here's our graphic. So now we're going to do one for squares. So for squares, the area is the side times the side. All right, so let me draw a square. Let's see. Okay, and then I'll do the we'll do the slashes. Okay, like that. All right, so side times side, and let's add one more thing, or S squared. All right, so that's 1. Okay, all right, so now we're 2 down. Okay, all right, so that's square. So let's practice a little bit, and then we'll do rectangles, and then that'll be it for today. Okay, all right, so look at the first 3. Now, I on purpose really didn't put too many questions here, because I mean squares is like, you know, so easy to do. So let's just do area. Okay, so what's the area of this? Well, what's the area formula for a square? It's the side times the side, right? So 7 times 7, not 7 times 2. Okay, 7 times 7. All right, so 49 centimeters squared. That's how you do it. Okay, now with that said, try these 2. Press pause and try these 2 real quick. You can use a calculator. Okay, I don't mind. So press pause and then we'll come back and go over it. Okay, all right, and we're back. So same thing, right? Side times side. So that's 15 times 15. What's 15 times 15? Is it 225? Let me double check. Yeah, 15 times 15 has to be 225. Yep, 225. 225 what? What's the unit? Centimeters squared. Okay. For the last one is Wow, my computer is freezing a lot today. All right, that's 0.9 times 0.9. What's 0.9 times 0.9? I think it's 0.81. Yep, and I would be right. Okay, let's say 0.81, what is that, meter squared, okay? All right, last question for squares. Look at this question. If the area of this square is 81 units, right, what's the length of each side? So here we're doing things a little bit differently. I'm saying if the area here is 81 units, right, what's the size? So in other words, I'm giving you the answer and I want you to give me back the question. So the question is something like this, right? So this is x, right? So think of it like this. What number times itself will give you 81? All right, sounds familiar? We talked about this briefly, I think in March or February, right? What number times itself will give you 81? So in other words, like, you know, like what's 4 times 4, what's 5 times 5, right? Like what number times itself? Yeah, 9, right? Why? Because 9 times 9 is 81. So in other words, okay, whereas if you have s times s or x times x, that gives you x squared. The question is this. If I give you 81, what would x be in order to give us 81? So in other words, what times what gives us 81? Okay, I just wrote that here. Okay, right? So that means instead of squaring it, you take the square root. Okay? So what's the square root of 81? Again, what times what is 81? 9, right? So remember that conversation we had in class, right? We're talking about square root. So what times what gives you 100? 10. What times what gives you 4? 2, right? What times what gives you 1? 1, right? That's it. It's the same conversation. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. You won't see that on the quiz. Not likely. Okay. All right. Let's move on. How are we doing on time? Yeah. All right. Yeah, probably. Okay. All right. So with rectangles, definition, what's a rectangle? Let's use my favorite color. Okay. All right. So what's a rectangle? So 1 in a rectangle, you know, I should have done that here. All right. You know what? Let's do that for squares. For all sides are equal. Wow, the computer is really slow today. All sides equal. 2 is all angles 90 degrees. Okay, all right, let's move on. So what's the definition? Okay, for rectangle, opposite sides are equal. Or congruent. Let's use congruent. Okay, it's way more professional. Okay, all right, so that means this. These two sides, they're congruent. They're equal in length, right? These two sides, they are congruent. They're equal in length. Okay, so that means that the two sides that are long, the two long sides that are equal, we have a name for that. We call that the length, right? And we use the letter L for that. Here, for the short side, these two opposite sides are the same length. We call that the width. And we use the letter W to represent that. Okay? Now, this is, so here's a question for you. Then if that's the case, right, how come this shape right here isn't a rectangle? Can you think of a reason why? Why is this not a rectangle? Because if I base on this, right, by the way, this is, I think the way that we're doing this, the way in which I'm asking you questions, right, by giving you a definition and then giving you wrong examples and asking you why this wouldn't be a rectangle is called the Socratic method. Okay, so it started by a very famous philosopher named Socrates. All right, so yeah, I don't know what's the one thing that he said that everyone remembered, but oh, I don't. Okay, all right, okay. So, anyways, let's move on. So what would Socrates, if Socrates was your math teacher, what would he ask you, right? So he would say, hey, look, you just said that the opposite sides are congruent, right? All these opposite sides, they're congruent, right? How come this is not a rectangle, right? And everyone can see that's not a rectangle. So what's the difference? One more time. Yep, you guessed it. A rectangle has 90-degree angles. So all the corners are like upright corners. All angles are right angles. Okay, so that's the difference. Okay, all right. So what does that mean? How do you find the perimeter of a rectangle? Right, length plus the length plus the width plus the width, right? So you just go around length plus the length, width plus the width. Right now, there's a shorter way to write that, obviously, right? Remember combining like terms, right? Length plus length, so L plus L, how many L's? 2 L's, right? Plus, right? Same family, remember that? W plus W, right? 2W. So you see why it was important for us to learn how to combine like terms? Because even something as simple as finding the perimeter of a square of a rectangle, you can see that why we had to do combining like terms, okay, in the first place. So all these things are tied together. They're all connected, okay? All right, let's talk area. What's the area of a rectangle? By the way, so this is not a rectangle. This is a parallelogram, okay? So which we'll visit tomorrow, I think. Or Thursday. Okay. All right. So let's see. Area of that length times width. That's it. Okay. Length times width or length times width. You can write it like that. It's up to you. Okay. So with that said, let's practice some. Oh, let's write it down in the graphic organizer. Let's see. Okay. All right. So a rectangle is the area is length times width. Okay, so this is going to help you do your homework. Let's see. So that's length. That's the width. All right, there we go. Let's see. Did I miss anything? Nope. Okay. All right, let's go back. So let's practice a little bit, and I think that's it for today. Okay, so today's more like a review than anything else. All right. Okay. Let's practice. So yeah. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. All right. We can end after this. So I'll do 2 of these with you, and then I'll let you practice. Okay. All right. Let's see. Okay. So here, what's the area? Right. Length times width. So 5 times 3, 15 centimeters squared. Okay. That's how you do it. All right. Length times width. You see why I only want to spend a day on both of these topics, right? So let's see, 17 times 7. 7 sevens, 49. 7 times 1 is 7 plus 4. 7 plus 4 is 11. 119 centimeters squared. So here's what we'll do, all right? Try these 2 on your own right now. So press pause, and when you come back, we'll go over it. Okay, all right, and we're back. So the area is length times width. So that's the length, that's the width. So that's 20 times 6, 120 centimeters squared. All right, this one, again, see how I keep rewriting the formula? Length times width. Now, I picked this question for a reason. I picked this question because you might look at this and say it's a square. you can't assume that. You have to look at the actual numbers. Okay, that's why. So that makes this a rectangle. Okay, so let's see, what is it? 1.8 times 1.5. What is that? Well, let me use my calculator. 1.8 times 1.5, 2.7. Okay, all right. Yeah, all right. 2.7 meters squared. Okay, now I have 2 more questions to show you, and then we're done for the day. Let's see. So, oh, I got a bonus for you. Oh, okay. All right. So, looking at just this question right here. So, if the area is 16 centimeters squared, what's the width? So, in other words, knowing that the length is 8 and the width is this mysterious number, what would 8 be multiplied by, right? Because think of it like this. 8 times what gives you 16, right? So you see how we have to do, why we have to do one-step equations, right? So 8 times what gives you 16? Yeah, you divide by 8, right? 8 times 2. So this would make that 2 centimeters. Okay, so in other words, if the area is 16 centimeters squared and the length is 8, what would the width have to be? So the question you ask yourself is, right, 8 times what gives me 16? 8 times 2 gives us 16. Okay? All right, so with that said, try this one. Try this one right now. So press pause and try this one. Okay, all right, and we're back. So the area is 140 centimeters squared. You see how I always label everything? Okay, it's very important to do that, especially in geometry. What's the length? Right, so here's the length, right? So again, the question is 14. So if the area is length times width, and the length is the length, and the width is 14, 14 times what gives you 140? Right, you can divide both sides by 14. 10 centimeters. So this is 10 centimeters. Okay, all right, let's see what the bonus is. I forgot already. Oh, this is fantastic. Oh, wow, this is fantastic. I think if we were in class, I would have offered this as a bonus question. How are we doing on time? Okay, why don't you try this one on your own? Okay, press pause and then try it, and then we'll go over it. Okay, all right. Here we go. So this is how you do it, all right? First of all, you would have to know that if this is 15, this is 15 centimeters, right? And that would be the length. So the question is, what's the width first? Now, very strange, because all the other questions I'm giving you, in the last 2 questions, I gave you the area, and then you have to find one of the sides. But all of a sudden, now I'm giving you the perimeter. Right, you see that? Like, it's weird. Like, why am I putting the word perimeter in an area question? Well, there's a reason why. So think of it like this. How do you find the perimeter again? Yeah, you add the lengths, right? You add the lengths, and then you add the 2 widths, right? Now, knowing that, the perimeter is already 50, right? Because I told you that. So, and then I got my 2 lengths. So the 2 lengths add up together is 30 already. Right? So what does the width have to be? Right? When I add it with the 30, will give us the 50 total. Yeah, 10, right? So these 2 would have to be 10. So that's the width. So if the width is 10, right? Now you can check too, right? I mean, it's not like I'm lying to you. So 15 plus 15 is 30, 40, 50, right? 50, right? Then the question is, what's the area if the width is 10? You see what I'm doing here? So 10 times 5, so area is length times width. 10 times 15 is 150. So that's 150 centimeters squared. Okay, that's all. 10 times 15, right? Per area is length times width, 15 times 10, 150. So what I've done here is I've put the two topics together, the perimeter and area of a rectangle, and trying to see if I were to give you just one length, you can find out what the rest is given the perimeter. Okay, so that's the bonus question. Okay, probably not on the quiz. No, not on the quiz at all. But I thought that was a good bonus question. Okay, all right, we're really gonna sign off here. Okay, so thanks for watching and have a good day. Bye bye. Okay. Oh, there we go. There's the bell. All right. Don't tell me you don't miss that bell.
OMG, that was so good.